there, warm welcome. You're watching Decoding now and I'm Meghna Dekha. Well, is Instagram raising your child? Is it rewiring their brains? Is your child now getting hooked to Instagram and to Facebook? Long hours of scrolling, reel after reel, late night doom scrolling, and studies taking a backseat. Well, now America is drawing a Lakshman Rekha for Mark Zuckerberg's Meta. After facing lawsuits in US courts, Meta has offered a $17 billion safety settlement with American states. If it is accepted by the judge, then Facebook and Instagram could be forced to change forever. It will change as we know it. There's going to be no more chasing lights for children, no more beauty filters and a 2-hour daily limit on Instagram and Facebook. But here's the big question. Can Mark Zuckerberg really break the addiction loop? Well, tonight we are going to decode Meta's proposed makeover and what it could mean for millions of children. But the question is, America has already drawn the line, but will India follow suit? So let's begin. But before we deep dive into Meta's series of restrictions which it will be imposing on itself, on Facebook as well as Instagram accounts which belong to minors, let's first tell you the breakup. What is this entire 17 billion settlement all about? Well, this is what Meta has offered to pay the US states which have sued it in American courts. Well, in this, Meta will pay $11.7 billion within the next 10 years to the US states. Then there is going to be a $5 billion payout to US states by Meta again if these curbs are also imposed on YouTube as well as TikTok, which are the two big competitors. Meta has said, you want to put curbs only on us. What about the others like YouTube? What about TikTok? So Meta says that we agree to give you another additional $5 billion if there are similar curbs being put on Meta's rivals as well, YouTube and TikTok. Then there is also, this includes this entire deal, $75 million in US states legal costs, $459 million to settle the Cambridge Analytica scam as well. So the total offering for a settlement made by Mark Zuckerberg is $17.2 billion. This is what Meta is now willing to pay in case we manage to do this. Now the sweeping restrictions for all the accounts belonging to users under 18 years is a 2-hour daily time limit. Let's break it down for you. What does it mean, this 2-hour daily time limit? Well, this means that there's going to be a reset button which starts at 12 a.m., which is 12 midnight. This will exempt activities and messages. But if you log in for 2 hours, you can use both Instagram and Facebook. But if it is in excess of 2 hours, you do get locked out. This is going to be for long form videos. Who can override it? Only a parent can override it. If the child says over 2 hours he wants to use either Facebook or Instagram, it will be the parent who decides if it's a yes or a no. But it's not just that. Meta will also be blocking Facebook as well as Instagram accounts which belong to minors during night time. So at night, and that has been one of the biggest complaints which has come in, that children are so addicted that they are not getting proper sleep, that they are not getting the requisite sleep, they are distracted because they are on their phones watching Instagram and Facebook. So let's decode what it means for the children in US and perhaps in future, even our children here in India. So what is the nighttime block? Let's explain. So from 12 midnight to 6 a.m., there is going to be a block on Facebook and Instagram on accounts which are being held by minors. In fact, they are only allowed limited chats, and that's going to be part of the account setting. Only limited chats are going to be allowed to them, and this is going to be part of the account setting. From 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., there is going to be no notification allowed. So all those notifications which keep inducing your child to go back to Instagram, from 10 p.m. in the night to 7 a.m., there'll be no notifications coming in from Instagram and Facebook because the parents have said that their kids are so distracted that they keep going back. Every notification means they go back to Instagram and distracts them. But it's not just this. Will Meta also impose certain restrictions during the school hours? And that has been one of the biggest grounds, that even during school hours, the kids are still addicted. Let's tell you what that could look like. Well, school hours, which is essentially 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the US, there is going to be no notification. What is the intent? As per Meta, which it has offered to say, is that it will reduce the amount of distractions for the children. It will also restrict engagement online for these children so that they can focus more on their studies and what's happening in the school rather than on their phone. But why are these restrictions necessary in the first place? Well, let's tell you what is known as Meta's dopamine manipulation algorithm. Meta's system can create what's called a variable reward schedule. You might get a sudden flood of likes, shares and comments, only for engagement to suddenly drop. And that is the unpredictability. Anyone who gets that high, it's almost like an addiction. It's almost like gambling. You get that high when you get a lot of likes on one single post. Suddenly, the likes stop. Then it throws you into withdrawal. You keep posting again and again, hoping to recreate that same high you once had. It's almost like gambling, or rather exactly like gambling. You keep going back to the tables again and again, hoping that you are going to win big. You may not, but you continue to hope for it. Then there's also the no stopping queue. What does it mean? That Instagram Reels are using infinite scroll and autoplay. So essentially there's no end to it. It's for infinity. You can keep scrolling day in, day out, all through the night, reel after reel. You will continue to scroll, but there is no natural end to it. There is going to be one video after the other and another immediately going to make it easy to keep scrolling without even pausing. There's also Meta's algorithm, which also uses machine learning to personalize what you like. So they will understand and see and check what you're liking, what you are sharing, what you're commenting on, what you're pausing on. And then they are going to give you customized feed. It will ensure that you skip your sleep time, your watch time is going to increase. All of this is going to be used. This data is going to be legally connected, collected, and then used to hold your attention span. And that's especially concerning when it comes to teenagers. Remember, teenagers' brains are still developing, particularly in areas when it comes to responsibility, when it comes to self-control, when it comes to decision-making. They are not brains which are fully developed like an adult's, where you can make the right decision. When social media constantly delivers novelty, reward, validation, the urge to keep scrolling can be very hard to resist. But this hook has now been broken. At least that's what Meta says, that they're going to try and break it. The addiction will no longer be there after Meta implements what it has promised for under 18 users in United States. What has it promised? Is that the feed is not going to be personalized. That means they're not going to be collecting data illegally of your children. Also, the number of likes which come and which is addictive in the first place is going to be hidden. So children, anyone who's not an adult, will not see the number of likes that they are getting on their posts. Also, remember, there are cosmetic and beauty filters, which has led to a lot of issues when it comes to young boys and girls about the way they look, makes them conscious, has led to a lot of bullying as well online, and a lot of other related negative impact it has. All these beauty and cosmetic filters have been banned in minor accounts. They'll not be able to access it. Now, the most important question: how does Meta verify someone's age? Is this a minor or is this an adult? Because if it's a minor, all these curves will come into place. If it's an adult, then it wouldn't. Well, the age verification measures are going to be set in place, which is going to become much stricter. What is this age verification process? 14 days will be given to prove that you are an adult. If you refuse or if you fail to say that you are an adult, to prove that you are an adult, that means you are deemed to be a child. Your account will be tagged as a minor's account. Then there will be a 1-year deadline for Meta to actually implement this entire system, but essentially 14 days time will be given to you to prove that you're not a child, you're an adult. And if you fail to prove that you are an adult, all of these child protection norms are going to be put into your account. But now, Let's tell you how parents get more control, and that's perhaps a good thing. The parents are going to be getting a whole lot more control over their children's account, at least when it comes to the United States for now. Let's break down how. Well, the new commitment which has been made to the US states could empower parents. Parents will now be able to receive daily information when it comes to the usage by their child online. Parents can also modify the restrictions that they want to make. If they want to put more restriction or less restrictions, it's going to be in the hands of the parents. Meta will be responding to 8 out of 10 of the woes in 6 hours. But viewers, the biggest question at this point is, does India need Meta to bring in the same kind of safety measures as well? Well, this question becomes very important if you look at the sheer number of users who are minors on social media in this country. Let's tell you about it. 95% of teenagers in India are on social media. 40% of children aged between 8 and 12 are on social media. 6 in 10 children aged between 9 and 17 spend 3 hours online daily. 17% children in Maharashtra spend 6 hours online daily, 6 hours. 22% parents say that their child has symptoms of depression. 37% list OTT platforms as their children's favorite pastime. Can you imagine? So can Meta actually break this addiction loop? Let me put that across to our panelists. Joining us today on the show, we have Daryl West, a senior fellow at the Center for Technology Innovation, Douglas Dillon Chair in Governance Studies, Brookings Institution. Also joining us, Pawan Duggal for India's Viewpoint as well, a cyber laws expert joining us live. I'm going to come across to you first because it's important for us, Daryl West, to understand what really is it that Meta has offered to do. If the judge accepts it, do you think, in your opinion, it can break that addictive loop that everyone seems to be so worried about, especially for minors?
This settlement is definitely a move in the right direction in the sense that Meta has agreed to impose 2-hour daily limits on young kids, to have the nighttime ban, to have stronger parental controls. All those are important, but whether that will actually reduce the addiction risk is really uncertain. As you point out in your report, the 2 other big competitors to Meta, YouTube and TikTok, are not subject to this settlement. For countries around the world, this is a U.S. settlement, so it doesn't affect India or any other jurisdiction. So to really cut that addiction loop, there needs to be clear guidance, not just for Meta, but for the other big users. And it would be useful for other countries around the world to impose the same types of restrictions on their young kids.
Pawan Duggal, in that case, 95% of Indian teenagers are already on Insta and Facebook. Do we need these kind of restrictions?
First and foremost, let me clarify by saying these restrictions will not be applicable to India. This is a US settlement for US laws by Meta in the context of US, given the litigations of US states. So the natural expectation that this will be automatically replicating across the world is an erroneous presumption. It will not be applicable in the Indian context. So Indian children will continue to be exposed to addiction as they have been done so. And the reality is that till such time the Indian laws and the Indian regulators don't take a strong stand, Meta is most likely than not continuing to do what it has been doing all these times, making markets like India as laboratories for guinea pig experimentation, where the children of markets like India become guinea pigs in the experimentation labs of companies like Meta. It's important that this particular point needs to be seen as a tipping point for all stakeholders, all regulators across the world to jump into action, to start taking effective action against companies like Meta. Because if you really want your nation to go ahead and prosper and progress in the coming times, you'll have to protect the young generation.
Absolutely.
You do not have to expose them to doom scrolling.
But
you have to make
Pawan Duggal, who takes the lead? I think everyone agrees that we need some kind of restrictions and norms. Pawan Duggal, in US, it is the US states which dragged Meta to the law court. Now, what happens in India? Who should be taking that lead?
Well, the lead needs to be taken by the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. That's the nodal agency in India as far as the IT Act and its implementation is concerned. In addition, the Ministry of Children and Women and Children Welfare also needs to chip in apart from the Ministry of Home Affairs. But the reality is India has been seeing a great honeymoon period for all these companies because India has gone very, very soft. There's hardly been any kind of an action that India has taken against intermediaries. Further, intermediaries have been very successful in driving the public narrative in a different direction. They have been effectively arguing in the public narrative that the Indian Supreme Court has granted them complete statutory exemption from legal liability, which is completely false. Section 79 IT Act says, guys, if you want statutory exemption from legal liability, you will have to exercise due diligence, you'll have to comply with the IT Act and rules, you'll have to ensure that you do not conspire or abet in the commission of any offense.
Yes.
Now, clearly, they have been able to mold the public narrative into believing that they are exempt and they are above the law. People need to realize they are not above the law. The government needs to go ahead with a strong hand against them. Unfortunately, there's been lack of appropriate political will in this regard. And that's the reason why these companies have gone ahead in a completely unaccountable manner as far as markets like India are concerned.
Agreed. Very, very disturbing there. But Daryl West, what was particularly disturbing is when Meta comes out in an open settlement such as this, admits that they're going to stop the algorithm addiction. That means they were using it year after year, decade after decade. That is an admission, isn't it, that they have indeed been using it. Now, do you look at it as a tip of the iceberg? Could this just open the Pandora's box now? There are several others, YouTube, TikTok, so on and so forth. Do you think this is the beginning of what should be the end of this kind of hooking our kids?
I mean, in the United States, we're definitely seeing the rise of a backlash against technology on many different fronts, not just on the social media front, but AI, data centers, and many other intrusive technologies. So the United States actually is getting tougher through litigation, as well as states are starting to impose some moratoriums on data centers. So I think the regulatory environment, at least in America, is going to get tougher. Public opinion polls show Americans are very worried about the addictive capabilities of social media sites, potential job losses from AI, and data centers being built in congested urban communities. So I think it's becoming an issue in our 2026 midterm elections. There are a number of candidates already advertising on a lot of these tech-related topics. So I do think the regulatory environment going forward is going to get much tougher on a range of different tech companies.
So that's going to be interesting. It's going to be essentially parents and governments versus the big tech. It's already started happening in US. As Daryl West as well as Pawan Duggal have pointed out, this is something which is happening in US. This is happening in the American courts where Meta, which is essentially trying to change how Facebook and Instagram are going to be changed forever to make it stop addictive. Question is, America today, will it be India next? Does India also need take a relook at what we are exposing our children to? Thank you so much, Daryl West, as well as Pawan Duggal, for joining us and enlightening us on what ought to be the way forward. Hopefully, the authorities are watching. With that, we wrap up Decoding Now. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. right here on Times Now.